Hi, everyone. Welcome to another one of our Power Pages, A Decade's Journey with Friends, where we're chatting with all of our favorite Power Pages friends, MVPs, all of our colleagues from around the world in celebration of Engineered Code's 10-year anniversary. So today I want to welcome Ulrikke Akerbæk to the program today. Thank you, Ulrikke, for joining us. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do for a living, what you do for fun, and maybe you can also list your least favorite podcast host.
You're kind of setting me up there. Should I say George?
You could say George, yes. I
could say George. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Nick, for having me. I'm honored to be on this show. And, you know, I kind of saved my life back in the day. If it weren't for Engineered Code, I don't know where I would be. So I'm just thank you so much for having me here. So what was your question? First, what do I do?
What do you do? What do you do for fun?
So I do what I do, and I do that for fun. So it's kind of the same thing. I do live, breathe, and eat Power Pages and Power Platform. That's my life. So I am I think I am a managing consultant, and I'm a practice lead for Power Platform at my job at Itera. It's a consultant company in Norway. We're spread across. We have offices all over Europe. So it's a big corporation, and I lead the way technologically for Power Platform at Itera. So it's kind of my responsibility to, just drag everyone along, make sure all my colleagues are up to speed. And also I talk to customers and I talk to new employees or leads and kind of do everything. Potato in everything Power Platform. And so, of course, for fun, I'm an MVP, Biz Apps MVP for Power Pages specifically. And so for fun, I travel the world and tell all the other people about Power Platform and Power Pages. That's what I do for fun. And my favorite podcast host in the world is, of course, Nick Dolman. I do love you as well, Nick. Very good podcast host as well. And I was actually on the Refresh the Cast podcast with both of you back in the day. So that was probably my first podcast performance, if you can put it like that. So you've shaped my way from the very beginning. So I am very thankful.
Well, I can definitely vouch that you travel across the world, promoting all good things, Power Pages, lots of stuff on the, making them look nice versus making them, not all look the same. So I would say you're probably the expert on that. Speaking of Power Pages, what is your first memory of, whether it's ADX Studio or Power Apps Portals or Power Pages? When did you first run into this product that we all know and love?
Yeah, I met the beast that must have been the winter of 2015. So right before Microsoft bought ADX Studio, we knew that it was going to be transitioned over into Microsoft. So we kind of got a head start into ADX Studio. That was when we could download the whole thing. We could edit the ADX pages. We could what was it called? APX? ADX? Yeah.
ADX.
So the code.
Yeah.
ADX. Yeah. The code, underneath. We had
the ASPX files, yeah.
ASPX, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I still miss the governance template. I really dove into that. That's not been seen since. And I remember it's not that long ago actually when they pulled the plug on the documentation for ADX Studio, because that was kind of my lifeline. That was the only thing that I had to go by really in the beginning was that documentation, and it was so good. Kind of the best kind of documentation I've ever come across. So kudos to the people that did that. Maybe that was... Did you have anything to do with that?
No, I never had to write, or never had the privilege of writing the documentation, so I will take no credit for that. There's maybe a few lines of code in the product that may have come from my fingers, but no documentation.
No, but I mean, it was there was certainly no podcasts. There was barely any blogs. We had the documentation, and that was really all that we had to go by. And I remember, because I came in from SharePoint, so for me to wrap my head around Dynamics and the relational database and authentication. So you asked me what was my first kind of thing with my first, with I till this day actually have the OneNote with all the screenshots of how to get an administrator kind of account up and running so that you would get all the editing tools. Because it was just so unfamiliar coming from SharePoint and everything being in Azure, and so just to get those web roles in place and get that user up and running, because you had to create the user and add the roles, and so many steps I found. But I still have that somewhere. I'll have to make a back in the day, way back when post about it.
I didn't know you came from the SharePoint world. Huh. That's for you.
I did branding for internets for 5 years. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, so you've been around the product a long time. Which of all the many names of the products is your favorite?
The one we never had.
The one we never had?
Yeah.
What's that?
It should have been Power Portals.
Yeah. I mean, portals is definitely... Everyone seems to like the word portals. It seems to be a pretty good descriptor. I don't know if there was... Like, at one time I heard it was like, they just couldn't get the domain. But they don't have we don't use powerpages.com anyway, so...
I know.
Seems like a silly reason not to pick that name, but there must have been some other legal version. I mean, I got to think that would have been the first choice, you would hope, but who knows?
I even remember seeing it in a doc somewhere, or someone in Microsoft posting a post on LinkedIn or Twitter somewhere with Power Portals, and I was just all over. I created a new tag on my blog. I was ready to go, and then suddenly it was just like, oh, what now? Are you changing it to what now? No, and portals. And I mean, when I write stuff for customers, for instance, or beds or whatever it is, it's finding the words to because you say Power Pages, and then I refer to it as a portal, and then a site, and then you have so it's kind of all the words kind of get mixed, and it's no clear terminology really that kind of just fits like a glove. So yeah, should have been Power, but could have been Power Pages. Yep. Well, and then,
I mean, I don't think I loved Power Pages when it came out, but it's grown. I mean, I think it's I agree though. It's like, okay, you have to use it's a Power Pages site, and
and then you have custom pages, and then you have the Power Apps portal, and that means the studio, because they call that so it's
it can be a bit much. So okay, so what's your favorite feature of Power Pages? What do you if someone asks you about Power Pages, what's the thing that it's either kind of a cool technology or you think provides the most value?
Yeah, so I want to answer twofold if I can. I'll do a Lisa Crosby here. Because the one and only reason to use Power Pages is if you want to interact with database data, done. I don't care about virtual tables and now I can connect everything. Maybe it will, a year from now, I may want to eat my words and maybe go back on this. But right now, today, if you don't have database interaction, you use something else, because that's the only kind of, that's the biggest thing. But for me, what I've always sold is the extensibility. And I've said this since day one, because I knew that even back then when it was a bit more restricted, anything you can do on any site on the web, you can do with a Power Pages site. Doesn't mean you should, but you can. There is no limit really to what you can do. I was on the XRM Toolcast a couple of weeks ago talking to Scott about this, the pro code and low code kind of duality, and Power Pages being one of the most pro code friendly tools in the box. And it always has been. But you need to know your web development. You need to know what you're doing. And if you do, then there's no limit to what you can do. You'll never meet that cliff where, no, you have to go back. You have to create something from scratch. You have to do it again. You'll never meet that with Power Pages. There's always somewhere to go. So, and then, can I add a third one, please?
Sure.
So multilingual capabilities, that always comes as a surprise, because nowadays it's invisible. It's nowhere to be seen through the studio or anything. But that's really been one of the key things about Power Pages, that the multilingual capabilities are so great. And you tell me, but does that have anything to do with the fact that it's created in Canada, and in Canada everything's bilingual, and that's kind of where that comes from?
Well, because Microsoft completely changed how the multilingual stuff worked when they took over the product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so back with ADX Studio, you actually had, you had multiple site records for each language. So rather than it being at like a web page and then the kind of the root page and the multilingual pages, that's one of the things Microsoft added when they took it over. Mm-hmm. So I think it probably reflects more like Microsoft is super committed to all the different languages, accessibility, all those types of things. So I guess they just decided to take the multilingual in a different direction. But I agree that it's somewhat like, it doesn't really exist in the studio. So I'm kind of curious as to what's happening with that. So
me too. I'd love to see that in the studio one day.
Yeah. Okay, so if I gave you a magic wand and I allowed you to change one thing about Power Pages, like what's your least favorite thing? What is it that you wish you could change?
If I could remove anything, it would be multi-step forms because they're horrible. They never worked. It's just no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, haven't heard that answer before. I got to say that there were many years where it seemed like everyone was using them all the time, and we just like didn't necessarily see the value. Like they sell well, they sound good, but then like you just get into it and there's kind of like, oh, okay, but where's the button to check so I can just click between the steps? That doesn't exist. And there's just some of those things that are just, it's not quite there. So I'd love to see Microsoft kind of invest in those and make those, because I think that could be a super powerful feature, and right now they're still lots of room for improvement there. So okay, so what's one piece of advice? You got someone who comes to you and says, hey, I'm going to be working on my first Power Pages project. What's that one piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, learn web development.
Yeah.
You need to know your web development. Learn the best practices, understand Bootstrap, and just dive in there. If you want to do good, you want to make good Power Pages sites, you need to know your web development. There's no way around it. It's not a low-code citizen developer tool. It will never be. You can play around. It does a good demo. It does a good POC. It's fun. It will look good soon, but it's not going to happen. You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know when we're hiring people, if I have the choice between an experienced web developer or an experienced, Power Platform, like model-driven app customizer, I'm going to take the web developer every time, because those are the skills that it's much harder to teach someone who doesn't know code to do those other things, whereas a developer can kind of pick up on I drag and drop some fields on a form here, like that's, that we can figure out.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally agree. Okay, well, that's it for my questions. Other than, is there anything you want to plug? What do you again, something about a podcast with some other some other Canadian? What do you got going on these days?
No, yes, I am running a podcast with Nick Dolman called the Power Platform Boost Podcast. Is news and updates for our Power Platform, not just Power Pages. We do know other things, or Nick does. So yeah. Just gather all the news that we can get our hands on. We'll just share it with everyone, just to try to help with keeping up with the platform.
Great. All right. Any events you're attending, or any world travels coming up?
Yes, many. So I'm going, first of all, for me now, it's EPBC. I dodged all the May conferences because there are a lot. And in May, in Norway, is completely impossible to begin with. So I kind of dodged all of those. And I'm going to Brussels for EPBC, and then Nordic Summit in Oslo in September, and Scottish Summit in October. So, so much. I absolutely love the smaller community events. That's my thing. So, yeah. What about you? When will I see you next?
The only one I got coming up is conflicts with Scottish Summit. I'm going to the Summit North America in San Antonio, I want to say. So I'm involved in the programming committee there. So that was a commitment that's already been made. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't have any plans right now to cross the pond, but maybe I'll have to do that. Yeah.
Or maybe I'll have to wait until CPBS to see you next.
Oh, yes.
Canadian Power Platform Summit.
Yes.
In
hopefully again in, when is that? There's going to be, is it April or March? I forget when they moved the dates.
I think it's March, unless they moved MVP Summit. Now it's going to be the weekend, I think, maybe, before MVP Summit. We'll see. It's a year away.
We'll wait for those guys to announce that. But yeah, that's going to be another great event, and I will be that one for sure. So, All right, Ulrikke, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for spending some time with us, reminiscing about Power Pages, and thank you for everything you do for the community, and really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for all the amazing content you produce. You keep us busy, and you keep us up to date. So thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Ulrikke.
Thank you.